Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino. Today I have a special guest. Her name is Marie Martin. Hey Marie, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for being here. Before we dive in, let me give people a little bit of your background. Marie has aspirations to assist people to begin living more fulfilling life again. Marie's fascinated by intergenerational patterns through process, complications we create for ourselves out of protection. She's committed to finding quick, streamline, and unobstructive solutions to leave you out of pain. She works in Canada and online across the world in private practice and addiction recovery centers. In one of the centers, she's known as the Trauma Whisperer. Wow, that's amazing. I love that. So start off by telling me where are you originally from and how was your upbringing?
I'm originally from England, UK, northern in a northern town, which was a coal mining town. So my upbringing was good. I had a good family structure, but we lived in a coal mining town during the coal mining strikes, and the year that I was born was the first miners' strikes, and then we had subsequent miners' strikes throughout my childhood that essentially shut down the industry. So there was a lot of trauma around us. There was a lot of difficulties, challenges, people losing their family, people losing their homes, and there was a lot of fear.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely want to dive into that. Before that, when did you make the move to? Because you're living now in Canada, right?
I am. I'm a little bit. I didn't set out to be a traveler, but I left home at 16 and went to live in Jersey in the Channel Islands, and I was there for 10 years, where I met my long-term partner, who's Scottish. So we ended up spending a year in Scotland, and then we migrated to Australia.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We were in Australia for 12 years. We've got Australian kids too. And then we migrated to Canada 10 years ago. So we've done a little bit of around the world.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, what made you choose or I mean, is this your last stop? Are you settling in Canada? Is this going to be the last thing for you, or are you looking to move someplace else?
You know, my mom asked the same question, and I said, you know what? I'm like, ask me in 10 years if I'm still here. I'm still here.
Yeah, right.
People say, which one's best? I'm like, well, they have the attributes, and you've got to mow the lawn wherever you are. So it's either mowing the lawn or shoveling snow or whatever it is. We've still got jobs to do, so the grass isn't greener anywhere.
Right. It's green where you make it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. So I'm fascinated by the things you do and the idea of what you're talking about, which is really dealing with our generations past, right? And so maybe dive in more into that, because again, we believe that I hear this a lot where people say, well, some of the things you're going through could have been from your ancestors and things of that nature. And then you might be thinking, well, how can that be? I never met him. Maybe, if we go really far down the line, I never really met him. So how can it be that I might be living some of the traumas in my own life? Maybe perhaps, my parents when I was growing up, just because of the things that I might have endured, or maybe when I was in my mother's womb, kind of like those 9 months. Yet prior to that, how can that be, right? So take me deep down into that.
I think the question is not how can it be, is the question could be like, how can it not be? Because we're actually, although yes, we have the experience of being in our mother's womb, but when our mothers are in our grandmother's womb, she already has all the eggs that she's going to produce in her lifetime. So essentially there's 3 generations in that one body. So we're a mix of the same chemical reaction. We're a mix of the same communication. Like all of our thoughts and all of our energy and all of our belief systems have energy. They have a chemical makeup, right? So it's like, how can we, the question is like, how can we not? Of course we have to have intergenerational patterns. Of course we have to have things that have passed down through our grandparents and great grandparents. And, you know, the good thing about that is like every generation seems to be getting a little bit better. So we seem to be doing a little bit more work to solve some of these complications as we go along.
Yeah. And so even with that though, right? I mean, so obviously the beliefs are being passed on from generation to generation. Then that kind of begs the question is like, you know, if I came from a very poor mentality, poor background, you know, how can I again step out of that if I have all these limiting beliefs, right? I believe that I can be, you know, this very successful financial person or economically be successful. Yet if you know, my ancestors didn't have that mentality or didn't have that entrepreneurial background or whatever that might be, then again, kind of looking at it is like, well, I'm never going to be able to become this because I'm trying to, you hear that idea of, you know, breaking that family curse, right? Whatever that might be, right? How do people start diving into that to make sure that they can actually do that?
I think the first step is awareness, and there seems to be like two ways. Like, well, we get 90% of our programming in between the ages of 0 and 7, so we've already got our main thread thinking from then. And some of us seem to take on like our mainstream belief systems come from a survival protection mechanism. We want to be like our family, so we belong, because belonging is our base instinct. We have to belong. If we don't belong, we will die. So it's like our base instinct is belonging. So some of us want to be like our family and like our parents, so we will mimic their behaviors and mimic their belief systems so that we're like them, so we belong, so that we're safe. Other people just simply rebel at a certain age and go, I don't want to be like that. So there are circumstances, a lot of circumstances where people have had really poor childhoods, but they've turned that around and they've created immense wealth. I think if the patterns have been where it's been struggle all along until we're adults, I think the awareness of it and actually taking a really good look at ourselves and a really good at our family network. Like, for example, I was struggling with sickness some time ago, and eventually I found out that I had hypothyroidism, and the doctor said to me, you'll be on medication and be sick for the rest of your life. And I said, I don't think so. And he was like, well, you better believe it, you will be, because this is not a curable thing for this illness. And I said, well, that's your belief system, not mine. I choose not to believe that. And he said, oh, you one of those, are you? And I was like, yeah, I'm one of those. But what I did do was I took the help. I got the assistance at that time, and then I did a scale. Like, I looked at my family, I looked at my relatives that also had the same genetic illness, and we know from Dr. Bruce Lipton's work that it's not only genetics; it can be epigenetics. We can take on the same belief system. So I did a really deep dive of my own belief system and started healing it from one belief after the other, after the other, after the other. So I think creating awareness around it, willingness to be self-responsible, willingness to really admit what our thoughts are, and to take a deeper dive into what those thought systems are. So with ourselves, I use the analogy of a coal mine, because I'm from a coal mining town. And it's like the layers of coal create pressure. When the pressure is enough, it creates diamonds. And it's the same with us. Like, we have all of this pressure, all of these life experiences that create the diamonds within us. But the diamonds are hidden if we don't dig for them. So we have to dig through the layers of coal dust to get to the diamonds. And when we get to the diamonds, we can shine it for ourselves, and then we can shine it for the world.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of that, for the people that don't know, what is that illness composed of, or what are the effects of that illness?
It's like, I had adrenal fatigue that created I had adrenal fatigue from like a lifetime of like hypertension, and that created the hypothyroidism. I literally couldn't lift my head off the sofa after 5 o'clock at night. I was obese. I was going to bed exhausted and getting up exhausted and just dragging myself through the day. So one morning I literally woke up and I was like, I'm not going to survive this. I'm going to die. And in that moment, it was like an awakening. I was like, well, if I'm going to die, like, I have a choice, and my choice is to live. And up until that point, I'd never looked at that from that life from that angle, that I had to make a choice. And as soon as I said, no, I make a choice to live, I'm going to make some changes. I was guided through this process of how to shift the limiting beliefs from the cellular memory and how to change it in all 6 bodies. So I was taken through a process where I had to go through my own 6 bodies and heal it in each one of the 6 bodies and integrate that system so that I knew how to teach it well.
Got it. You know, the one thing that is fascinating about that too is the idea of, again, even when you have a doctor that that has all these years of, you know, studies or whatever that might be, and we as people perceive that doctor or other people in general as experts, that we are so easy to take on those beliefs or say, well, the doctor said that I have this, or this is my conditions, or whatever that might be, and then we as human beings automatically take that for what it is and accept it.
Yes.
The interesting thing here is that, you know, it's okay. I guess one thing to take away is that it's okay to challenge that stuff as you did, and have a different belief. So that to me is very, I think, very important, because a lot of times, again, we don't challenge enough some of the what we perceive as the authority and or the experts, where in reality the ones that we have that we have to really look after and take care of is, well, it's my body, is I'm dealing with this, so I have the choice of believing or not believing. The second thing to that is the fact that you said, well, that's your belief, not my belief. And it goes back to the idea that I have, or that I always keep talking about, is that our mind is so powerful that we really have everything that we need there. Is just that we got to be able to know how to tap into that aspect of or that power, and once we tap into that, be able to extract whatever we can extract from that to help us and heal us. Is that something along the lines that you do with your clients, or how do you help clients, you know, believing and having that more of a fulfilling life?
Yeah, I have this, I'm also intuitive. So I hear something, I'll hear a word or a phrase or something, or I'll just pick up on something that you're saying. And when I'm in that space, like I use the analogy when people come in, I open your diary when you're in, and then I close your diary as you leave. So as we open the diary, things come to me. And I believe it's like, it's not that I receive it and that I'm the one. I think I receive it from you. You give me the word that you want to work on. You give me what belief is willing to shift in that moment, and then I receive it, and then it's like I just go in and touch the trauma. Just go in and touch it so that we can dissolve it, so that we can actually then replace it with something that's more helpful.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So I studied like a combination. Like I studied really weird metaphysical things, like I've got a degree in metaphysics, and then I studied really grounded scientific things, and I like to bridge the two. So it's always like, this is the metaphysical reason, and then this is the science behind it. Yeah, so it makes sense. We can accept it more.
Right. Yeah. And again, you know, it goes back to that. So the people you're dealing with, what kind of challenges are they coming to you with, and how do you help them deal with those traumas?
You know, I work in a couple of addiction centers, and I work in private practice too. And as you can imagine, in addiction centers, there's a lot of trauma. My belief is that all addiction is trauma, and it doesn't start with that first drink or that first drug. It starts between the ages of 0 and 7. So about 5 years ago, I went on a spiritual journey where I was literally shown each step in each stage of addiction right from the start, like where it starts. And it starts with subtle addictions. So we look at the addiction world and we say, you know, like, oh, it's so bad, there's homeless and they're all addicted and this, that, and the other. But these subtle addictions that we live with, that more generally are more subtle, that they're really hard to like pinpoint, but they're there and they're just as dangerous. So we have to take care of the subtle addictions as well as the other addictions, and it's creating awareness around that is really quite incredible. When I received the information from my spiritual journey, I thought it was my own journey that I was seeing, but the more that I explain this process of how it starts and how it's take through the steps, the more I realize that it's like it's almost like a pattern of addiction, and how everybody goes through the same patterns. And I do group once a week with about 30 guys, and every week somebody hears it for the first time and says that you've just explained my life story.
Mm.
step by step.
Yeah.
So that will probably be my next book.
Nice.
And start teaching people like the layers and the steps of addiction so that they can break it down. And then we
Yeah.
have to break it down one by one by one, right? So how I generally assist people is like we'll go into those trauma stories, and I'm gentle about it. It can be confronting and it can be painful, but like I like to keep it as painless as possible. Like, let's go in and deal with it quickly so that we can shift it quickly and move forward.
Got it. Do you use any different techniques? You've heard of hypnotherapy, NLP, which is very common in a lot of the things that when people are going through actually traumas and dealing with the things that our minds were programmed between ages 0 and 7. Do you utilize any of those principles, or you have your own different practice?
Well, I have my own modality that I use. I also studied neurolinguistic programming and hypnotherapy, and EMDR therapy I use as well quite a lot because it just breaks. Oh, sorry, I'm looking after dogs at the moment. So I'm interested sometimes. EMDR breaks down the trauma from the brain patterns, so that works really quickly and effectively as well. But mostly, like Metatron's Code is my own book and my own modality, and I mostly use that. So we'll do a deep dive into the center of the cellular information, shift it in all 6 bodies so it changes the story, and flip it all around and replace it all. And of course, I pull from all my other modalities. I am qualified as a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner, and NLP, and conversational intelligence, which is the neuroscience of how our brain works. And I studied quantum science, and you name it. I'm a bit of a serial learner. I can't help myself, but I've got to keep going.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you and learn more about the things you do and maybe want to work with you?
Yeah, I have a website, mariemartincounseling.com, and I'm also on Facebook as Marie Martin Counseling. So it's pretty easy to find me and get hold of me.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's awesome. One of the things that you mentioned here, which I kind of liked what you have said here, is we'll have suffer grief, losses that leave us stunned and stuck in one place, one mindset.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because again, I found people, and kind of going back to this idea that we've been talking about, is sometimes I find people that they said, hey, I had a really good childhood, great parents, I had it all. And then, you come to find out in your early 20s or early 30s sometimes, like, and I'm going through all these challenges and I'm not sure where that came from. And I think it goes back to that idea of what you just talked about, is that we are, to an extent, living our generational past traumas, although we didn't see it in our early life, and it shows up, and people are like, I don't know why, right? I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, it's always protection. So like we can't judge, well, we can and we do judge the belief systems that we've got, but really we could possibly look at it in a better light and go, wow, that really kept me in a safe place, and it really protected me, but now it's not working. So I say, like, between the ages of 0 and 7, we're like iPhone 4s with iPhone 4 software, right? iPhone 4 software is perfectly appropriate for an iPhone 4. But then we go through the ages and we're an iPhone 13 now. So in some places, we're still operating from iPhone 4 software. Nobody tells us that we need to run the upgrades, right? And all of this programming is running in the background. Like 70% of what we do is on automatic programming. So how do we access this? It's like, well, the story usually tells us what's going on. Here's the story. We can pinpoint the center of it and go right into the pinpoint of the story, because it's never about the story. It's about the programming that's at the center of the story. But when we get to that, then we can collapse it. But at first we've got to have the ability to be able to go into the subconscious mind and find that one belief, right? And sometimes we can't do that on our own. Sometimes we need help. I still need help sometimes. Sometimes I'll go like, I've got this story. I know the story's here. I know it's not about the story, but what is it in the center? And sometimes I'll need help with somebody supporting me to go into what the center of it is and to find out that one key piece of information. But it starts with willingness always. And as soon as we've got willingness, and we're willing to reach out and get help and support if we need it, then we can find out what that pattern and that programming is, that piece of iPhone 4 software is that's not working for us anymore, so we can upgrade it, update it.
Yeah. When you talk about the the willingness to get help, right? And I don't know if you see a difference between the male and the female, right? Normally, I would say that the females are more naturally will seek help, right? Or a male may not. And maybe that's where you find a lot more trauma or different things going on. Do you see that a lot? Maybe one, and then two, if you do, what will be your message to the men that obviously need the help, yet they don't have the willingness to reach out for help?
I think that used to be the story a few years ago, but now I'm not finding it. I'm actually finding I've got an equal amount, and the men are super willing. The men that come, like, to be honest, like, not mean to sound egotistical, but people don't come to me if they want to change, and if they don't want to change, then they'll go and see somebody else, because I'm not a talk therapist, right? I don't want to keep in the same story over and over again. And it's like, if you're going to come to work with me, you've got to be willing to change. And usually the men that come in are super motivated. It's like, I want to make a change, and I want to make a change right now. Even in the addiction center, I'm finding it like they are totally open and willing, and I love that. Like, it's like, because as soon as you're willing and you've got that spark, it's like you will take the tools and run with them. And I'm finding the men that actually come and do the work take the tools, and it's like, here's the hammer, go use it. And they take the hammer and they go use it. And and some of them are like, this is so simple. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't need to be hard. I think women sometimes we overcomplicate things because we overthink things too much sometimes. Right. So that's a sweeping generalization. Of course, there's differences in all, but I think as women generally we worry a little bit too much, and we will scan the horizon because that's what we're programmed to do. And so we'll think about all aspects before we'll accept it. Whereas men know, this is the target, I'm going to go and head for it, and they just do the thing. So as soon as they accept the tool and they get the ha-ha moment of like, oh, I can just do this, then they run with it. So I get excited when men come, particularly when they come for relationship challenges, because I know that they'll take the tools and use it and shift their relationship quickly.
Got it. Now I'm assuming the time frame that you work with each person, is it all the same, or it is based on whatever traumas they're dealing with?
It's whenever they feel that they've received enough to move forward, right? I have a couple of programs. I say this is like 10 weeks long, and this is like 20 weeks long, and some people will come for one particular thing and work on that particular thing and have 2 or 3 sessions and go, okay, that's all I want to do at this time. And gotcha. So I leave it open. It's a very collaborative process when I'm working with people. It's not like I'm the expert, I tell you what to do. It's like we'll work together to create the best outcome for you. And when you've got the best outcome at this moment that you want to achieve, then okay for now. I know people will come to me and say, oh, I've been seeing a counselor for 3 years. And I'm like, right, so if you see me for 3 years, then I'm going to be sacking myself, right? It's like, come in, do the work, get shifted. I like people to have tools that they can then use themselves in everyday life, so that I'm not creating dependency. Like, I want people to learn the tools, and I want people to teach. I love it when I had one lady that I was working with, and I said to her, like, how have you found working with me with this program? And she was like, oh, it's been great. She says, after every call, I've gone and taught my 8-year-old. And I'm like, yes. Because the ripple effect of change that happens from there is like, it's never ending, right? Then that kid goes and teaches his friends at school, and it's when we all have a little bit more tools in our toolbox, then we teach others the tools, right? So we all start to lift. It's all ships rise.
Yeah, that's awesome. You were talking earlier about the different bodies, right? Can you share some of those? What are some of those different bodies that you were referring to?
Yeah, so the cellular information's in the center. It's actually the Metatron's code, which is like how I received it in this way. It's like the cellular information's in the center in the form of a belief, a thought, a judgment, observation, perception, internalization or externalization. It's like essentially the thought and the energy that's creating the story. And then it sits in our mental body, in our neural pathways. It becomes our programming that we run on. And it sits in our physical body. We store it somewhere in our physical. So we've got to get to that place in our physical to dissolve it from there too. Otherwise, it creates disease in that spot or illness in that spot. And then it's in our spiritual body, our understanding of the whole process, where it came from. Did it come from our mother's line? Did it come from our father's line? Did it come from both? Or did we create it in this life, or sometimes people say perceived from previous lives, right? So it's like which area does it come from? So mental, physical, spiritual, emotional body, how we feel about it, our internal representation, how we see ourselves, and external representation, how we communicate ourselves to the world. And then we create a story around that to make it true. And we call in people, experiences, environments, things, objects, nature, things to create the story. And then once the story is created, it's in this pattern. It's like an entanglement that happens over and over and over and over again. So it's like when we can see friends that have that same pattern that's happening, it's like, why does that guy get the same girl over and over again? He's just finished a relationship with one girl and he's got the exact same girl, right? Oh, the same pattern with money. That tells us what the story is, but it's not about the story. It's about what's in the center. And those patterns seem to get worse and worse and worse. It's like the challenge with the girl started here and then it escalates, and it's like those patterns do escalate till it gets to a point where we're willing to look at it and go, okay, is this information that we've got in the center of this pattern true? And if not, then we can collapse it, replace it, and then it creates a new story.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Wow. You've been definitely doing this for quite some time, and a lot of times I'm fascinated to know what are some of the principles, or some of the not principles, actually more habits that you do daily to kind of keep a positive state of mind day to day.
I have a couple of principles. One is the knowledge that I will be a better person today than I was yesterday, because I work on myself every day. So my truth of today is different from my truth of tomorrow, right? Okay. So I'm perfectly okay with the fluidity of that, and going that I know things will change, and I know that I'll be working on myself every day. I also have a principle of a win-win-win. It's like, is this thought a win-win-win? And if it is, it's a win. If it's not, if it's a win for me and it's a lose for you, then it's a lose-lose-lose. Okay. So I try and set myself on that principle that everything that I do and everything that I say and everything that I think even is a win-win-win, because essentially I know that we have mirror neurons and our intuition is getting stronger. And I think that we're not too long down the line, we're going to be in a state where we can all read each other's minds. So it's like, is this thought that I'm having a thought that I can say out loud, and is it kind, and is it a win-win-win? And if it is, then I'll keep it, and if it's not, then I'll let it go.
Yeah, I love that. That's definitely awesome and amazing for sure. For the people that are watching us, if they're going through any sort of challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what is one thing that they can start doing now to start overcoming that challenge?
I think looking at the challenge as a gift. Sometimes we look at challenges and we judge them, and as soon as we judge them as a bad thing, then what resists persists, right? So it's like, as soon as we judge it and we think it's a bad thing that's happening, then immediately we get stuck in it. So creating the willingness to go, well, this is obviously happening for me to receive some wisdom or to scale up. It's like sometimes we get to a level and it's like, okay, we need a challenge to scale us up a little bit further. Right. And in the middle of that challenge, it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I've had times of dark night of the soul where I've been flat on the floor going, I'm had enough. I'll stay here. I don't want to grow anymore. And it's like, no, as soon as we get to the other side of that challenge, then we can see the wisdom in it and what it's created for us. So I think in the moment, it's like, try not to judge the challenge so harshly. Try to see it as a challenge, as a positive thing rather than a bad thing, and know that it's temporary. It's a temporary process. Even in the darkest of moments, it's temporary. And as soon as we get the blessings from it, we can move on and move forward.
Right. And I think I definitely agree with you. Sometimes the biggest thing is that pretty much everything we're going through or what we might be facing can be tied down to an emotion, right? And depending on the severity of the emotion, then that will probably determine the time for us to be able to heal or believe that we're going to be coming out of that, whatever that might be, right? So we're going through a financial challenge. Obviously there's an emotion of, am I going to make it? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? Am I going to be able to pay my bills? How am I going to do this? Right. And so it becomes that overwhelming emotion of how can I get out of this? Right. If it's a relationship emotion or you're going through a breakup right now, again, now you have that emotional emotion that deals with that. I guess one thing is knowing that I'm gonna be able to come out of this. How will you deal with some of those emotions that are tied to the challenge you're going through, to be able to say, you know what, yes, I'm gonna come out of it, and I want to believe that, except my emotion side of it is telling me something else.
Yeah. So I say to people, you know, like shame's the lowest vibration. So if we see like all of our emotions are a communication, like our communication is like, our emotions are a language that we need to learn. This language is more ancient than spoken word, and it's more wise. So if we learn this language, then it makes it easier for us to communicate with them, right? So it's like, see the shame. Shame's the lowest, one of the lowest vibrations. It's like, see the shame as your friend knocking on the front door. And he's knocking and saying, and you're ignoring it, going, I can't hear you. So it knocks a bit louder. I can't hear you. Knocks a bit louder. Shh. Knocks a bit louder still. It's like, I can't hear anything but this noise. Can you shut up? I'm trying to sleep. You know, and it's like bang, 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 bang. Your friend's at the door going, I know you're in there, and I'm not going to stop until you come and answer the door. So it bangs and bangs and bangs, and we can pretend it, we can avoid it, we can distract ourselves from it, but it's still in the background. What happened if we made a shift and we just opened the front door and said, hey, come and have a cup of tea with me, Shane? Right?
Yeah.
Then the noise stops. The knocking stops.
Yeah, so it goes back to that creating awareness then that you were talking about. Just you know, knowing that is there, recognize that is there, and then try to create a different change, right? You know, whatever that change might be. Yeah.
Come and have a cup of tea with me. Shame, anger, guilt, wherever the emotion is.
Yeah.
Come have a cup of tea with me. Like, visit with me for a while. Let me understand you. Let me be friends with you. Let me understand this communication.
Got it. Yeah. No, that definitely, that is very powerful. And obviously, you know, the biggest thing is being able to. I like what you're saying. You know, just come right in. Let's talk about it. And maybe the only thing that I'll add to that, because I've seen this before too, is making sure that people don't stay stuck in that conversation too long, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because then that is going to create, you know, a different aftermath, and sometimes that happens, right? And, you know, I've seen some people that haven't been able to step away from that conversation, and more challenging things have happened to them due to that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's like when we stay in the story and stay in the drama and repeat it over and over again, you know, we can repeat it 20 times and all that's doing is reinforcing the problem, right? So it's like keep it short and sweet. Like when I developed this process, it used to take me 2 hours to talk somebody through like the whole process. Now we can be in and out in 10 minutes, and it's because my processes are sped up, your processes are sped up, and the world's just speeding up, right? We're wanting to shift these beliefs and this trauma and this energy so that we can step into a new world. So yeah, I had somebody that a guy that came to me, and he had this really big drama story, and he wanted to tell me the whole story, and I was like, hang on, let's pause, because I've got the belief to work on. And he was like, no, I want to finish the story. And I said, well, here's the deal, let's work on the belief and then you can finish the story. And he went, oh, okay, let's do it. So we went in and worked on the belief and worked through the process. And then afterwards I was like, okay, you can finish the story now. And he went, doesn't matter.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome.
That saves you an hour in therapy time, right? So it's never the story. It's like it's what's in the center of the story that matters.
Yeah. The thing that you created, I mean, it kind of reminds me, right? And you see this perhaps in NLP to an extent, but you see the drama cycle, right? You have the rescuer, the victim, the perpetrator, right? Yeah. And it's this vicious cycle, right? That at any given point, we as people can be in one of those three areas of that triangle. Yes. And the idea is for us to be able to step outside of that and you know, be on the outside. Kind of like I always tell that 95% of the people are in that drama cycle, and that 5% are outside of that drama cycle, right? Yeah. And so, you know, I've studied that myself too, and being able to say, okay, how can we, you know, because again, those are all emotions, right? How can I stop being a rescuer, a victim, or a perpetrator, so that I can see it from a different point of view, right? I'll
give you a really great example of that. Like I taught my kids the drama triangle, and I came home from work one day, and I had a long day, and I came home and the dishes weren't done, and I went straight into the triangle, like, hey, get out from your bedroom, like, what are you doing? Get down here, get the dishes done. And he went, when you get out your drama triangle, then I'll do the dishes.
That's awesome. I love that.
And I was like, hands up, you got me.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to take a shower. So I went to, I'm going to go take a shower and wash the day off. And when I came back down, the dishes were done and he wiped the surfaces down, right?
Yeah.
But the old pattern in that used to be me going through, I'd come in into bully mode, you know, like, hey, what have you done? Like, I've been out all day, come and do the dishes.
Yeah.
And it would shift to, you know what, I'll just do it myself. I'll go into the rescue mode. I know it better than you anyway, and I know where everything goes properly. So I'd clean the kitchen and do it all myself, and then I'd go into victim mode. And why me? You know, I've been to work all day, then I've had to come home and clean the kitchen, and now I'm exhausted. And da da da. But that pattern doesn't happen anymore. So as soon as we have the willingness and the self-responsibility, and like teach your kid the tools, because they will teach them back to you.
Right. Exactly. There you go. That's a good way to definitely knowing that you're doing a good job teaching them, because you're getting that back. So no, that's awesome. Marie, I definitely enjoyed this conversation. It was amazing. A lot of great things you've talked about. Anything else that you want to share with us before I let you go?
I think the dogs do. I think, what I want to share is sometimes. Shush, guys. Talking about drama triangle. There's a drama triangle going on. Give me a second. Sorry. What I want to share is probably like, keep going. Like, don't stop. Like sometimes the journey gets challenging for us, like this.
Yeah.
It's always perfect timing, right?
Right, exactly.
Sometimes things get challenging. Well, shush. Sometimes things get challenging and we want to stop. And I think just keep going, just keep moving. Sometimes we get into a place where we don't know what's happening or what's it's a higher vision than what we actually have. Well, shush. You know what's happening? One of the dogs got a sock and the other one knows they shouldn't have it, so he's barking at him. How's that for the drama triangle, right?
Yeah, there you go. They're definitely they're doing an illustration of what the drama cycle is all about.
They're doing the illustration. So I think the lesson is just keep going, keep moving, keep taking a step forward. Even if you don't know what the challenge is or what's going on, just take a step forward. And eventually you'll figure it out.
No, I love that. And definitely, even with this going on right now, the other thing that I would say is you got to deal with what emerges, because we're going to be hit with so many different things, so many different distractions, and you got to continue to keep that path, that course, whatever that might be, and just keep moving forward, as you mentioned, so deal with what emerges. So definitely, Marie, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun.
Yeah, definitely. For the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure that you go ahead and follow Marie, connect with her, see maybe she can help you out, and or most importantly, share this message, because somebody needs to hear this. And guys, I'll see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, love. Okay, bye now.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.